If you want to understand why it's essential to have a tall striker on pro clubs, watch this. So hello guys and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how important it is to have a tall striker on pro clubs. Now, I know there's a little bit of information out there about how important it has to have like a target man type of player in your front three, but I don't think people understand just how important it is when playing pro clubs, and especially if you're trying to get into the higher divisions, right? And you know, for a long time, people have always sort of favored shorter players because they're typically seen as more balanced, more agile, so people can dribble a little bit better. And generally in FIFA, they're quicker. Their acceleration's typically a little bit higher, but there's also this illusion that they're just much more quicker and much more nimble, and that taller players or taller strikers are clunky to the point where it really hinders how well people play with the ball at their feet. And I just wanted to go through why in this FIFA people's perceptions of that should change. So short strikers look better, right? Even now, if you go through their stats, the higher acceleration, agility, the balance are favored. And because they've been so good on so many previous FIFAs, you kind of just think, well, it must be the same. They're better to play with. But I don't really think so. I don't really think those extra couple of attribute points you get from being short towards acceleration, agility, balance really make enough of a difference to warrant choosing that. The tall strikers now, if we have a look at their attributes, we can see their acceleration, their same sort of attributes, acceleration, agility, balance, are somewhat compromised, but it's not like they're bad. Like you can see this build I have on screen, I still have around acceleration, agility, those three attributes around the high 80s and even 90s. And with the jumping and sprint speed and strength become important, especially since you're making your guy tall, those attributes kind of get amplified. If you play against deep blocks, height is really valuable. I guess the problem with short strikers is you can't beat a target man, and this is more a problem this FIFA than I've witnessed in previous FIFAs. I think it's always been known that they're not great at winning goal kicks or helping with defensive clearances or even with wide long balls, right? But one thing I found really frustrating with this FIFA is it feels like I'm always going to concede a chance when I have a corner, right? If I have a corner, I want to be a threat. And there's been so many games I played this year where I feel like we've lost a header in the corner and then the team immediately counters and you almost feel helpless to defend it, even with a player back. Your natural thought is when you have a corner where you should be thinking about scoring a goal, your natural thought is to be defensive, which I don't think is how you want to go about things. And so having a tall guy there, it's very easy to just cross the ball into them, get them to knock it down and to create a chance instead. Also, with short strikers, they're not the short players this year, they're not very good in sort of the 50-50 duels, not just in headers, but also shoulder to shoulder. Maybe when you just want to give yourself an extra half a yard to get a shot off. They just don't seem to hold off players very well. And that can be very annoying. If your guy's not strong, it forces you out wide. If your striker is not very strong, it forces them to push the ball out wide because they can't hold it up, and it limits you. And this is where the tall striker fixes everything. It can win it headers anywhere on the pitch. It's a reliable outball versus deep blocks. So if the defender's pinned back, you can just chip the ball into the striker and he'll flick it on. And also, from goal kicks, you can rely on yourself to get yourself up the pitch quickly. And even, with a deep block, if you're sort of got the ball in the middle of the pitch and you're forced to play it out wide, you can actually cross it in rather than play it back into the middle. And that's very important, especially if playing with two players up front. You want to have a little bit more variability in your play. And the team you're playing up against is keeping it quite deep or keeping it quite tight in the middle. You want to have that option to not just play cute little passes and dribbles, etc. Of course, the drawbacks with sort of a tall striker is that they're clunky. And, I've got a few clips here which shows that a tall striker can still play good football. Look at, especially when you're cutting inside from the wing, you'd think it'd be a little bit clunky cutting inside, but honestly, ball rolls are so good when you've got a defender one-on-one. You can easily ball roll and then finesse, and you'll get a good chance of scoring off that. So the agility balance question doesn't feel as big of a need to answer. And you can still see here, it's not like you can't play with the ball. I'm still doing some stuff here which shows that I'm playing good football. And I just think they're more complete for the short striker. And listen, I'm not saying everyone in your team has to be tall, but to not have one striker that's tall is really hindering your ability to win games. And it's these sort of differences which make the difference between a team in Division 2 versus a team in Division 1 or even the Elite Division. So to summarize, having a tall striker, it solves a deep block question. If you're being forced wide a lot, you've got a threat from crosses. And even in corners, you can actually be a threat from them rather than having to think about the counter attack. And even if you're defending a corner, the striker can come back and head it away. You'd be really silly to not at least give it a go. So, in the end of the day, short strikers might look effective, but tall strikers are effective. And my recommendation is literally just try a tall striker for 5 games. Watch how much easier Pro Clubs becomes. And let me know your thoughts. If you think it's good advice, if you've got some other opinions about how to build your players or how to build your attackers, let me know. I've been playing with a tall striker for quite a while now, probably in the last month, and I've honestly found no compromise in his ability to dribble or how he sort of navigates in front of goal. He's still good in one-on-one situations. He's good at holding off players when he's running in a straight line, which comes up a lot on the wings. You can just drive the ball to the halfway line very easily. And so there's no reason, for me, I found it's just given us a much, an extra dynamic. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Please let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you think there are better builds out there, maybe a short striker is still better, and I've just got a biased opinion. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and leave those comments. If you've got any other recommendations for a video as well, please let me know. I'm always open to those. And yeah, hope you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening.